Hey everyone, and welcome to another Moonbeam Communities YouTube interview. This time we have here with us Gabriel. Gabriel is the one that created the governance participation reward project. It's a very cool project, and there is a lot of engagement coming out of it. And I think this is going to be a very good interview, not only because it's a good use case of the remark technology, but also is how we can use NFTs and the blockchain and all those things to bring people together. In when we talk about governance tokens and governance decisions in the crypto world, there is little adoption most of the times, right? This is a problem for most of the protocols. And I think Gabriel came up with a very cool idea, on how to explore this a little bit more and give more meaning to it. So Gabriel, welcome, and thank you so much for
Thank
accepting
you.
this. Yeah, maybe
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
maybe you can tell us before we start, just a quick background, how did it all started, the project?
Okay. The project actually started with the rumor that was going around on a Moonriver referendum, where somebody was saying that voters are going to be rewarded with NFTs. And I noticed that this referendum had much more voters than the average referendum. And I was personally amongst them as well. And then those NFTs never ended up coming around. And I just saw an opportunity there to tackle this myself.
Yeah, I think this is I remember like one of the votes from the referendum in Moonriver, and there's several initiatives, and Moonbeam is still working on several initiatives with those NFTs. It's coming along. It's
Okay.
it's really moving forward. It's an experiment, right? But I think what you did, bringing the remark technology, into it, and I think the Kusama voters or the Kusama KSM holders in general, they are more into their community when it comes to like some decisions of the referendum, because there's a lot of decisions that really matters, right? Especially remark based stage mine, and a lot of things of that. So it's definitely a voting that decentralization is really important, right? To have like really representation into it. So before we start, maybe I can share my screen, and just show you guys like what it looks like. So this is an example of the shelf, and this is what a lot of people in the Kusama world is talking about, and I'm in a group here of NFTs, and people were talking about like, did you participate in the last referendum, because they wanted to get the NFTs. They were really appreciating the art. So whoever is doing all the designs, of the arts, like congrats to them, because it's really unique. You can definitely see that as a kind of an art piece. So Gabriel, maybe you can go over and just explain a little bit what is the shelf, what are the NFTs,
Sure. This project makes use of the newest Remark 2.0 standard, where you can have composable NFTs, which essentially means you can layer NFTs on top of each other. The first time anybody votes, they will receive the shelf NFT. This is here in this case, I mean, yeah, it should be evident. So the wooden shelf there. Each consecutive time, and also the first time, they will also receive an item NFT. So each things that you see on the shelf right now, this is an NFT this individual has received for voting on a specific referendum. The very first one is the trophy. This was in referendum 181, the first item on the shelf. And the latest one right now is the robot bottom left. I think everybody can guess that this was a referendum related to robonomics. This was for referendum 207.
That is cool. And I really like this Dino over here. I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, there are several of them that is very interesting. Now, how did you come? So you came up with the idea based on the Moonriver referendum, but how did you get initial traction? Like how did you start and people started saying like, we have a, you know, this shelf and I want to get NFTs? How did people start? You know, how did you kick off with this project?
Yeah, I think this project was very different from other projects I've done in the space as well. This is not my first one, but for this one, right off the bat, there was a lot of interest and I could feel like, okay, we're onto something here. We actually started off at first sending out Remark 1 NFTs. This is your classical like JPEG stuff, like a simple image. We did that for about 10 referenda until we finally moved to the shelf then. But yeah, like from the start, it was so amazing. People just, yeah, were really excited about this idea. And I think most of how we spread as well, we don't have a marketing budget. Like we barely do any marketing. Most of it is word to mouth. So I think like, yeah, as you mentioned, people talking in groups, people talking in forums. Yeah, like this is, yeah, it's been amazing for the project.
Yeah, and how does it work? I know there is some rarity involved, right? And I think it's related to the voting power. Is that it?
To an extent, yeah. So we want to make the whole project as fun as we possibly can. At first, like the trophy that I just showed as the first item, there was only one type of NFT that everybody would get. This was in referendum 181 that I already mentioned. Every voter got this trophy. Then we started thinking about, okay, involving some luck. And now how it works is we have usually 3 different items. And depending on how lucky people are, they will, like, if they're very lucky, they'll get the most rare one, otherwise the medium or the least rare one. And they can influence their luck to a given extent with their voting power. Sorry, with their voting amount, considering conviction.
That's cool. That's cool. And they can see in advance which will be the each NFT, or is a surprise like until you receive it?
If they're involved in our community, they'll know beforehand because the whole brainstorming, everything is like happening on an open Discord where, yeah, members from the community are just kind of throwing ideas out there for the suitable items for each referendum. And then there's artists that bring those ideas to life. But we, as soon as the referendum comes in, yeah, people are brainstorming on what would be a cool item for
Right.
for it. Yeah.
And I think this is a very good use case for Remark, right? Because it's simple. Not I'm not talking about the coding, but you understand the idea, right? It's pretty straightforward, and we can clearly see the Remark trait, right? We have the shelf, and the shelf has some items, so it's like those legal NFTs, like Bruno likes to say, right? So I think this is pretty cool. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, this became easy when you know Remark was available, and you know, and you had the idea.
So I was involved in the Remark community before already, especially the builders community. I took part in their hackathon as well with a different project. And yeah, I was always excited about like Remark 2. I knew it was gonna come along, and we kind of launched this project at a perfect moment of when also Remark switched from Remark 1 to Remark 2. So we're one of the earliest adopters of like the Remark 2 standard and of these composable NFTs. And yeah, it's been really exciting. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that we're also doing. Like these are all like really new concepts. I think it's gonna take time until people really get used to it. And I think like the excitement right now, I think it will increase with time as people like understand what's going on. But for example, like with Remark 2 as well, you can have like one NFT that you can equip into multiple collections. So we have done, for example, an item for referendum 193. It was related to Remark. And we did a cross collection equipable item with Canaria for that. So you had one of the items. So you had to be very lucky for that one. But the most rare item was equipable to the Canaria or any Canaria bird. and also a shelf. And then depending on which one you would equip it to, it would render differently. Just now, we also did a cross collection item with Mushroomtopia, where all the items, that was the first time we did, made all the items cross collection equipable. So no matter whether you got the common or the most rare, you could equip this NFT into multiple collections.
That is amazing. That is very cool. You know, it's really probably the simplest way to understand a remark, right? Because there are so many layers, there's so many use cases for remark, you know, and people can get overwhelmed about, you know, all the things in the canary world, in the sky breach, you know, how things will be interconnected. But looking at the
Yeah,
shelf and items that you can put inside the shelf, which is an NFT, right? And you can get one of those NFTs and you can remove from your shelf everything in the blockchain, everything, you know, like it's there. There's the transaction confirmed that you moved from the block, the NFT from the shelf, and you put into a canary, and it's not a JPEG, you know, that is moving from one place to another. There is another image that is made specifically for Canary, right? So you can
exactly.
customize according to who the parent NFT is, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is very cool. This is very cool.
yeah.
And
I mean, we're probably gonna push the limits on it in the future as well. Maybe we'll have like one item that is gonna be equipable to many collections. Like who knows? But yeah, we're just like getting into it and getting people used to it. Yeah, which is still like very fun on its own too.
And tell me this, because there's a lot of people in the community, they are very excited. They're always like, I didn't get this last one, so I'm buying in the singular marketplace. Um, what are the, I mean, is there any use case? Is there a future use? Maybe, for example, people were talking about, I don't know if it's true or if it's just like their expectations, that the last one from Robonomics, you know, they will use that somehow. I'll just throw out things in my mind, which they didn't say anything. But if they have some kind of a metaverse or you know anything, they can whitelist the people that has those NFTs. So is there something already like concrete that you can share with us, like of use cases of this collection?
Uh, there's nothing concrete. If anybody wants to get like information as it comes out as well, like it's very open. Like on Discord, it would be like the first place that like teams would announce like specific utility for these NFTs. There's definitely like the Robonomics team specifically, yeah, is interested in doing like using this NFT in the Robonomics world. We're brainstorming about possibly like owners of the NFT for referendum 207 would be able to use the telescope or something, you know, like yeah, like just open up the door to their world through this NFT. I personally think that I mean that's exactly what we're trying to build. Like these NFTs are a way for any project out there to know how active a given wallet is in the community. So they should essentially become a platform for projects out there to categorize potentially like the community members or the wallets in the space. So I personally, Bruno recently, he did an interview and yeah, he kind of predicted the utility of these very NFTs, and any project out there can, you know, be as creative as they want with this. And I think we'll see like different use cases, but it would of course make sense to if a specific parachain has a referendum up and to reward these voters, their community essentially with like a certain extra reward in their little world. So yeah, I think like this is gonna take time too. Like many projects are still building stuff, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of possibility here. And maybe a given project they would only, because all these items are also they're transferable, so you can purchase them on the secondary market. maybe some projects, they're only interested in rewarding users that have actually received the NFT directly from us, like like for voting, essentially. They're not interested in rewarding wallets that have purchased NFTs. Other projects might only want to reward projects that have only purchased it. You know, like people can, I mean, projects can filter these NFTs in any way they like, and yeah, like build their own products around them.
It's just, I'll tell my personal experience. Okay, I own some governance tokens, you know, from some projects. The truth is, I only voted probably twice in my crypto life existence. You know, like I didn't participate in much. You know, my goal with all those tokens were like see increasing value. You know, believing on the project, but not actually actively involved in the project, you know, in a way to understand all the voting, all the things. And of course it matters, you know, like it's even embarrassing to say like you did some investments and you're not participating and seeing what people are voting for. But this is the reality, right? Because I think you have some numbers, how much you increase the participation in the vote, in the governance voting, right? Can you share those numbers? Like what was the gain that you noticed when you added this project
Yeah.
to?
So when we started the project, voting numbers were in a range of 80 to 200, most of them closer to the 200 mark. There were some like close to 80 just in the few referenda before we started the project. Now we have an average of about 1,500 wallets voting. It's also important to look at the turnout itself, like how much KSM is participating in referenda voting. And on that front, I think we have tripled since we started the project. Yeah, like our governance like is the very core of what we're doing. Like if we don't have a decentralized if our governance system doesn't work, then essentially all the work we're doing is at risk. Like, you know, if somebody could pass a referendum that would harm us all, and there's only 80 wallets voting, this is extremely, like, this is a major vulnerability. And essentially everybody in the community, every token holder should care about governance. Now, the whole system of voting is still a bit complex, and it requires some learning on the user side. So this is really why we're doing this incentive. It's to compensate the user for spending the time to learn about it and to get involved.
Let's think about those numbers, you know, like when we think about projects like Kusama, Polkadot, and we can go beyond other blockchains as well. I think, you know, most of the blockchains have important, not only blockchains, dApps, right? I mean, there is huge dApps with huge TVLs. You know, we say it's a great community, but the truth is when we see the voting system, you know, it's there. They have the good intentions to, you know, to make people vote, but people just not interested. You know, and we see decisions being made with only 20, 30 people doing the votes, you know, or, you know, could be less or more. So we not only have an increase in the KSMs, which is good for the tokenomics, right? More KSMs means more KSMs out of the market. Of course, you can vote to have instant liquidity, but some people can vote to lock their KSMs for a certain period of time. And you also increasing, which I think is a very good number, the amount of wallets. You know, there is 1,500 wallets. You know, it doesn't necessarily means 1,500 people, but it's very close to it probably. So we see increase, you know, in almost 10 times, you know, like maybe a little bit less, but almost 10 times in the number of people voting, you know, and this is truly amazing when we stop to think about it. You know, it's really people getting more awareness of what's going on. You know, they open the discussion, they are more into it. You know, it's a win-win situation, right? It's a win-win for Kusama, it's a win-win for the user or for the voter. I'm a really big fan of what you guys come up with. It's really a good tool.
That's why it has been so amazing to work on it, because I mean, now we're also in a bear market, and for our project, there's no bad vibes at all. There's no negative feedback. I mean, this is like, yeah, it's like a magical win-win for everybody. So like it's really fun for me as well to be working on this project. I feel very privileged that I have the honor of doing this.
Yeah. Do you? I know Remark is kind of moving to Moonriver, right? With the smart contract version of it. When they move to the smart contract version, do you think you will be able to migrate your project to there as well? Like, how does a little bit of the mechanics for a non-technical guy? How do you think that's gonna work?
Yeah, so there was the Remark 1 to Remark 2 migration as well. Personally, I know like the palette is just fresh out of the oven. There will be like a tutorial by Yuri, one of the main developers on Remark very soon. Also met him last night and got a confirmation on this. So as soon as that is out, we're also going to be looking into how it will work differently and how like the whole migration process will work. I think similar to Remark 1 to Remark 2 migration, we're also going to have like this service offered by Remark, like through the singular UI, or possibly like we can just, carry the whole collection over with a click of a button. That's how it was for Remark 1 to Remark 2. And I think especially since the functionality is mostly the same for Remark 2 and the palette, like it's mostly about yeah, like improving the back end of the whole Remark system. That's why the palette is way better. But I think yeah, like on the migration side, I'm not too worried about that. And then the you might have also noticed, and other people too, the shelf is almost full, and it's also time for us to think about what's next. How are we going to evolve the project? The idea that is, yeah, the main idea floating around is that we're going to have a living room next, into which we can then also equip the shelf. And then each time you vote on a referendum, a new item will be added, possibly a furniture item or something else to your living room. And this is like, we keep scaling in this sense. And if we time it perfectly, maybe we'll just like do that, move to the living room just as we have the palette out in production, in which case, yeah, it would be amazing, because then we were one of the first collections to do like Remark 2, and it would be just, I mean, a magical moment and perfect timing on all sides, at least for our project, if this migration to Remark 3 also happens at like a milestone moment for this project.
This is really cool. This is, I imagine like the room, like, and this was one of my questions, like what's the next step? Because the shelf is getting full, right? So thinking of having like a living room or something, it's really exciting for sure. I know a lot
Yeah,
of
the key thing, sorry, the key thing is that the shelf will be with us. Like we're going, like the shelf will be equipable into the living room as well. So yeah, it's like I mean, Remark 2 again with composable NFTs. That we're gonna see how many layers. After the living room is full, we're gonna have to think of something else again. In which case, we're gonna have like this structure of like many layers to this project. But I think it makes sense with composable NFTs. Like the technology is there, and this would be a really good use case of it. And we start small, and then like we grow big, and yeah, who knows what we're gonna have like in a few years' time.
and the all the everything is based on Kusama voting, right? But do you feel that you can expand also to the parachains governance voting as well? Or do you think
Hmm.
that's going to be a little bit trickier?
I think at the end of the day, we like to, or I personally like to think of this as an experiment too. There is still certain things we have to figure out before I think it makes sense to kind of spread this far and wild. It is still a centralized solution, for example, is like it's me who fires off the script, and to basically, yeah, like does the send out itself. This is a paid point. Then it's also like, I mean, problems we're dealing with right now is that people we want to make sure that the vote numbers are increasing, but we need to make sure that we have educated votes. Like there's no point in just simply, having 10x amount of votes if nobody's actually reading the referendum. Like if they're voting in a way that might be harmful to the network, then we're moving in the wrong direction possibly.
Right.
So we're now working on ways with which we can ensure that we motivate people to read up on the referenda and to make an educated vote. And as I think until we figured that out, and the whole, I think it would have to be a decentralized thing, where automatically whether a referendum expires, there is a smart contract being executed with which automatically everything gets sent out, and you have this user interface where people in a decentralized way vote on the art for a given referendum. So I think it will still take time. I think it's always key to make sure the project is not growing too fast and too quickly. I think we have a really nice pace with this project right now. It's really organic, the speed is really nice. And yeah, we still have issues to tackle. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but yeah, one step at a time.
I like very much this thought, because some people are, well, in the crypto space, are very anxious, right? When Moon, all the stuff, and they are expected to have amazing results, or a very robust project and product within weeks, right? And the truth is, you just tackled very important points, right? You guys need to figure it out. How you decentralize, how you make more robust, how you make people care. I think you were even discussing about the values, right? I mean, the core values make a meaningful vote, increase in awareness, right? So how can we improve that before we move to the next phase? So this is pretty cool. And I imagine that you guys don't have a roadmap or anything like that. It's more, as like you said, as an experiment. You are learning as you go, all this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
It's literally the Discord. If somebody wants to get involved in the discussion of how we can motivate people to make educated votes, I'll just give a quick rundown of the current idea that we're having, that we're building on. But if somebody wants to get involved in this discussion, has a better idea, feel free to just bring it up, and yeah, everybody will see your message and people will give you their counter arguments or their support, whatever. But the idea we have right now is that we're building a designated UI, so a website from which people can vote. And before they vote, they can take a quiz. And if they get the quiz correctly, they will get a small luck boost with which they have a higher chance to get the rare items in the referendum that they're voting on. So not a punishment thing, or just an extra reward for somebody that has read the proposal properly. And yeah, it would be purely factual, a purely factual quiz. And yeah, it's not going to be overly complicated. It's just a basic, check of, has this individual really read the proposal? Just, are they aware of what is being voted on? And yeah, then we give a small reward to this individual if they do in fact know the answers correctly to the quiz. Yeah.
And it's really cool. And that's what my mind was going to when you mentioned about how you increase awareness. It's probably a quiz or something like that. I mean, I think this is pretty much it. I would like to have, as a final thoughts, how do you see this project within a year, further down the road in the long term, whatever long term means to us, right? Some people is 2 weeks, some people is 2 years. So in your
Yeah.
long term perspective, how do you see the project? How do you think it's going to be in this long term view?
I think right now, I mean, everybody knows, it's no secret, we have amazing tech in Web3, but what's missing is the participation, the people. So we actually, this is not the only incentive. There's many examples, also Kusama specific and Polkadot specific, of how we are now using incentives to get people to come in, like build on our network and all of that stuff. I think right now the user still needs an incentive to learn, like to take the time and learn about this stuff and yeah, to get involved. Like the motivation is not there without these incentives. And as we get more people in, I think we'll see that everything will work on its own. I mean, this is what we're all envisioning. Like we're all envisioning this future where people actually care about the network and people are connected to the chain in a way where they will feel like, yeah, okay, like it's their responsibility to take part in these votes. So in the long run, I think we wouldn't need these incentives anymore. Whatever the long run might be for you, I think like if this project still exists in the long run, I think it will be in a different shape and form. But I think, yeah, like once we have like this threshold of people that care and that do the work, that yeah have the network's best interest at heart, I think from that point onwards, it might be like a self-running machine. Yeah, I hope that didn't come off as like too negative for this project. I still think in the near future it will be relevant, and even midterm, and who knows what the long term will be. But yeah, many of these incentives, I think, yeah, we're trying to build a system where actually that will take care of itself.
Yeah.
Or where the incentive, I mean, like now you could argue that the incentives through these NFTs is substantial. I mean, if you consider for how much some of these NFTs are selling, if we're going to have incentives in the future, I think the value of these incentives will be much more closely aligned to the actual work put in to get this incentive.
Yeah, that's what I would conclude as well, because incentives for voting, you know, and I completely agree with you. Like we live in a society, it depends on the country where you are, right? But sometimes vote is not mandatory, you know, for voting for presidents in elections, for example. And we feel that, you know, like if you have some incentive, you will make a better vote. But it's like you said, you know, if we're just giving, you know, food, you know, for vote, they will vote whatever, you know, they won't think carefully, you know, about the votes. And so there's a lot of social awareness value in what you guys are doing. But the way that I see in the long term is personally, and this is, I mean, you guys are the members of the project. I'm just like a guy that has a shop. But the way that I see that is this will evolve to something else. You know, you could not necessarily just stick with governance elections or voting. You know, you could do training purposes. You know, you could do actively uses of, you know, like in a tool. For example, we have just as an example, we have Moonwell, which is a lending borrowing protocol, and maybe whoever is actively participating or contributing, you know, with lending features within a certain time can get some item that they can put in their shelf, you know, for example. You know, like there is more than just votes, you know, that you can explore the user engagement in several ways, right?
Yeah, so essentially, I think, like if I understood correctly, just have a visual representation of the user's contribution to the network, wherever it may be, like whichever parachain, just like one NFT that kind of represents everything.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is pretty cool, and it really opens the door to people with new ideas, you know, to brainstorm about how they can use the remark technology, the legal NFTs, how they can link NFTs with potential engagement increase and more, right? So this is pretty cool. Gabriel, thank you so much. I think this was a
Thank you
very
so much, Diego.
cool and good interview. You know, it was a pleasure to meet you. And
Thank you.
hopefully, I'm going to complete my shelf shortly as well. I have some of them missing.
If you keep voting, it will get filled up.
All right. All right. Thank you
Yeah.
again, and see you next
Thank
time.
you. Take care. Bye-bye.